So by the end of it, the Democrats absolutely got what they wanted. If they couldn't totally replace very quickly or decimate the population, the Slavic population of Russia, looks like they've decimated the Slavic population of Ukraine. Because now the Ukrainians themselves are discussing what far-flung countries they would have to pull people in from. So not let's try to get people expertise from Germany, expertise from Italy, expertise from Britain, expertise from France. Oh, none of those people want to move out of their countries. No big brain people. No, you need raw, uncut, dopey, dumbass laborers from the far-flung East and Africa to go to the breadbasket of Europe, what's going to become one of the most important places for stability for the next generation, and fill it with randos from around the world. There we go. Oh, that's a solution. There we go. Because remember, because now the Ukrainians owe us all kinds of money. The peace plan is that they're going to owe us money. One of the other things that's going to have to become part of the peace plan now that this is being brought up by the Ukrainian government is, and you're going to have serious elections that we seriously think are legit. It is going to be by paper. You're going to have a repatriation program for Ukrainians. That people can be repatriated no matter who they are. As long as they're Ukrainian, they can move back there. You need as many people who are the real thing, real people, and now no more Nazi government of Ukraine, no more of these soccer hooligans ripping people off. Look at duckies. Oh yeah, duckies in the snow. It's the duckies in the snow. There they go. The ducks in the snow. Yeah, look at that. Came down last night. We should be getting this for a little while longer. Look at that skyline. Oh, frosty and gray. Oh yeah, very few people driving around right now. People here really don't like this. This is, yeah. It's, not only are there certain kinds of hillside neighborhoods that it becomes kind of difficult to negotiate just because of the elevation, but it's really that we rarely get snow. Rarely. And so when it snows, an area that a lot of people bicycle, a lot, are stuck. Most places that have public transportation. Is the road negotiable? Public transportation depends upon if the rails and the roads are negotiable. That's the issue with public transportation. I wanted to touch on this because this is a criticism of the United States that a lot of people just don't fucking understand. And this is something that now I'm this is the housing problem. This is the pollution problem. It is everything. These things all come together naturally or not. And you're going to have to deal with that, kiddos. People who are in their 40s, 50s still don't fucking understand. And you kind of try to have to walk them through it, and it's like all things liberal. No, I don't know about that. It's yeah, because I got you. I got you. You're not thinking about this clearly. You want to control the outcomes of human behavior in a way that you can't. Train lines only make sense in places that are extremely old, so that you have village systems based on people only going about a half a day's walk away. That like things are a distance from each other in certain parts of that country that have been long established, that show people at some point would walk to the next town. This is almost non-existent in the United States. People will be like, oh, well, the East Coast, and say, yeah, well, that's the thing. The East Coast are very, very, very old population centers for our country. And they were here before we had a lot of motorized anything. The West Coast, remember, it was train lines that helped establish a lot of the West Coast population. You know, yeah, the bunch came out here on buggies and shit. But what we associate with the establishment of the West was the laying of train lines. So this means, like, for what purpose? Because we were traversing extremely long distances longer than Europe itself. This is why when people are like, but I've lived in Europe and they have trains. And it's like, they had the Roman Empire. The very system of measuring things in distance is based on the ancient empire that established most of the road systems. At some point, people have to just kind of start dealing with, like, okay, no, you're not being realistic about this. America doesn't have a system of cities and towns in most of it that are so nearby. You would have train lines that would go there. Even the Bay Area by the late 1900s, just building train line from major city to major city was like a humongous fucking undertaking that took decades. It took decades. If you look at the history of people building train lines, this is not the same story. No, train lines were put together with relative speed at one time. No, the things like BART and all that, this is all stuff that it's like, yeah, you'll see if this works in the long run. But if that population center doesn't stay a major population center that could support such an elaborate system, the system won't be able to maintain itself. This is the history of light rail overall. San Francisco, California had multiple rail companies. It had to become municipal rail because of these companies going in and out of business, because it's a very difficult business to squeeze profits out of consistently and expand service and maintain fleet. Very, very, very thin profit margins, most likely, and completely dependent upon the availability of what is relatively high technology and then high skilled people to maintain that technology. And then you never know what you're dealing with just something that might just go horribly wrong, like a sinkhole along one of your routes. That kind of thing of a city zoning routes for public transportation. So because public transportation, the history of it is it's private, and there are private enterprises, but they would have to be sort of licensed a route in a way, that homeowners wouldn't have something running by their house in an inappropriate neighborhood for a bus line to be in. So cities would have to zone the routes. And now, once you're doing, even the city I'm in now, they used to have rail companies. There, you could still find rail tracks here and there in odd places in the town because of how it used to have actually rail. The thing is, though, this requires high technology of the time, anytime, because we're always advancing trains, and the people to maintain it, and that's expensive. And then people might start building a lot of stuff around those rails. They'll just build a neighborhood around it. So that then also makes it, well, you are competing against. See, one of the things is it comes down to, you would have to fundamentally kind of outlaw cars to make trains win. It wouldn't really work another way. Just looking at like China tells you this, because they have lots of private vehicles. You know, so many private vehicles where we see reports of just giant yards full of them and nobody's driving. And so even though they have trains, they have buses. We know this. All these people, oh, I've been to China. They have all kinds of public transport. You know, so a lot of this is you're not dealing with the geography of the United States of America, because everybody forgets, and I always have to put it in this way. Okay, when you're flying in a plane at night over the United States, what do you see? You're like, darkness and a few lights? Yes, because nobody's there. There's no one there. There's huge gaps of space between us. Like we've only developed 2% of the 48 contiguous states. We've been here multiple hundreds of years. Well, people are going to start finding out that the past era of environmental, well, the crisis, it's a crisis. They're going to start finding out like the horrible truth of like, yeah, well, while the Democratic Party was always selling this crisis, they weren't really trying to make it so that vehicles would last longer. They had no problem with this idea that vehicles would be on the market or be on the street for this exceedingly short amount of time. They didn't try to encourage these companies to make vehicles that would last like a decade. That they didn't try to encourage these companies through incentivization, legislative incentives. Why don't you just make it so that people could repair the cars? Because this actually has been factored in. That when people can repair cars and they keep their cars for longer, what it is that this develops a culture of people that are very, very responsible about their vehicles. The old reliable is old reliable. People don't whip donuts. People don't want to dispose of old reliable every few years. This idea that we have this Japanese system of people just jumping lease to lease to lease. And the whole point of that was so that Japan could keep selling cars, because they could not beat us by volume. They had to come up with a system to keep their car companies constantly producing new cars. So they have these lease systems that, because what they do is they say, oh yeah, your car is no longer up to standard. So you have to you have to lease a new one. So you kind of are forever leasing a car. Now that was back in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if they're still doing that. But I'm just at this stage. I'm like, we have this opportunity to question so much and to really change a lot. And now Gen Z and Gen Alpha are like generation don't bullshit me, bro. And people sending the info in the chat about what the real deal is about something, what the real dope is about something. And that I really love by the end of this, all these motherfuckers have had to deal with that Alex Jones has been completely and totally vindicated. No matter who he has to pay money to, he won. Yeah, he won, and other people lost. Uh-oh. We already got an accident? I think we already got an accident. Oh, that's a shame. Looks like he veered. Ooh, might have veered into a tree. Not sure. Not. Oh, yep. Ooh, ouch. All right, well, I'm going to get going because my hand's freezing. All right, later.